The ticks around girth, which you can see on our website, which has a rubber plate underneath which sticks to the horse's stomach, and also slips one girth width behind the elbows so gives the horse room to move. We also do this with a longer plate, which is even more successful. This has got quite a short plate in it. I actually sell them mainly with an 11-inch plate in.
Are these your girths, are they?
These are, wow, do these.
Wow.
Because flare is wow. And the ticks around girth comes from France. That's the one good thing that came out of me competing internationally in France. Long story, I won't bore you with today. So, girthing is very important with the saddle as well. Fur is a saddle fitter's nightmare. If you ring me and tell me your saddle is moving about and you've got a fur girth sleeve and a fur number, I sort of die quietly and suggest we get rid of a little bit of the fur. Because things are going to slip and slide about with fur. The other thing that I would also say to you is, and it amazes me how many people do it, they say, oh, I don't think the saddle really fits, I think it's a bit tight. But I put a fit number underneath it until you appear. Is that what you do with your shoes? Before I come back to where I started, when you're working with horses, use some common sense. An everyday example. Right, I'll just show you one more jumping saddle that's a little bit different, and then if you want to just have a look at the top saddle as well, we can do. This is a very close contact jump saddle. This has got the sweat flap in, top flap taken out, and that's what gives you the real closeness. But again, the panels you can see at the back go straight down, straight across, and then in there. Which is what I started to say and probably didn't finish, is that the panel design of a saddle is so important. If you look at a saddle and it's got a banana panel and the panel comes up at the back, well, yes, it's going to lift and bounce about. It can't do anything else because it needs to be, in my opinion, down, across, supported at the front, then the whole thing sits on a bed and can't move. Okay? This is set up for a horse. This will be ironing because I set this up for an hour horse yesterday. So that shows you how, to me, this one I could simply let the air out because it's got lots of air in it. But if I was to get this level, I would want you there. So that the middle of the saddle, the tree is in there to spread the load. So therefore you must be sitting in the middle of the tree. Okay? Does that make sense to everybody? And you can see how the rider will be falling backwards. Would that make the rider fall backwards, or would it make them lean forward? Yeah. Because I have no end of people and I say, oh, I'll just lift the back foot. Oh, no, don't do that because I tip forward. No, physics is, if I lift the back, you'll sit up. So the higher I have the back, the more you'll sit up. Okay? But you do need the rider to be able to get the seat load down and the saddle and say to the horse, go. Okay? Right, have we got time just to look at one plot saddle that's down there?
Yes, I think so.
Right, grab who the saddle that's all has, and let's just have a little look.
It's the one without the riser.
When you're fitting a saddle, would you expect me to fit it with or without an under?
Without.
Why? Do you go and buy your wellies with your going out tights on? Because I'm probably going to tip it on its head to what everybody's taught you. My answer to you would be, you fit it with an under. Because to me, the saddle has to fit with whatever clothes you want to put under it. If you want a coat to put a waistcoat underneath it, you probably need to buy it a size bigger than you do if you want to just wear it in the summer with a thin t-shirt underneath it. Again, same principles. Okay? So if I was fitting this saddle or any of the saddles we talked about today, I would fit it with an under underneath. And if you think that your fluffy pad looks nice and cool, then I need to fit it with your fluffy number. Because your fluffy number actually makes the probably more mean the fluffy half pad, which are my nightmare. You know, I fitted a saddle at the Nationals for a girl because her saddle was too tight. I hadn't fitted it for 2 years. We nicely fitted it the night before. She trots down the centre line in the advanced medium restricted with her half pad underneath it, which I hadn't fitted on it the night before. So she got a bit of it, I think. You know, because at the end of the day, if she'd have told me she wanted her half pad, I'd have fitted it with it. However, if you use the half pad and you've got something like the flare, you are negating the flare as well. Okay? So, tell me what you think of that. Now we've talked about a little bit about saddle fits. What's your initial reaction? Come on, don't all go quiet on me. Somebody say something.
The depth of the seat's a lot different. I don't know, I just thought it'd be a bit more flatter rather than like a dip.
Higher up at the pommel.
That's really what I'm after, whoever said higher up at front. Turn that comment round a little bit and think a bit more about it. What's the too high at the front creating?
Pressure at the back.
Yeah. Because where's your backside going to be? Yeah. So that's that. But bear in mind, that's this static horse. When this horse walks down that yard, it might lift its back like that. In which case, the saddle is in balance. But on a static horse, I would want it to be there. So what I'm looking at is that middle point. So in other words, where your pelvis is going to sit needs to be a flat point. Okay? So just as I say, if you take nothing away from today, use common sense whenever you're doing anything with horses, and look at the whole picture, not a small portion of it. Because if you always get into the habit of systematically going through a routine, you will never go too far wrong. You know, I have a routine of a form that I go through when I'm saddle fitting. I always ask loads of questions all about the horse, its back, its physio, its veterinary treatment, its history, what damage the rider's had. You know, you may be teaching a rider who physically can't actually do what you're asking them to do. You know, I had a rider in Ireland who used to sit like that. And yeah, I could have told him to sit like that. But considering he'd got a great scar across here and up here, and everything was short on this side, whatever he did, he wasn't going to sit like that, because the muscles were here. You know, same with the horse. If there are issues with it, you need to address those issues and look to see what you can do to do the best. And then the other thing that I will just touch on quickly is if you've got a saddle that is dropping to one side, what you can do, say this saddle was dropping to the right, you'd use the back two on this side and the front two on the other side, and that might just give you just a bit of straightness, as well as shimming it and putting some pads inside. Okay? Right, any questions?
I've got one. You know how if you say you don't usually use the 4-finger rule for the wither clearance?
Yes.
And you're sort of about that much in
Yeah.
general. If they're a high withered horse, would you use a certain measurement, or again would it be?
No, again, as long as I have sufficient clearance, but the important thing is that you put your hand in to where the withers drop, which is about there. So don't be fooled that it looks like it's got a big open gap in here, but that actually when you slide your hand in to where the withers drop, which is there, that's where you need to check the clearances, because that's where a saddle very often captures. Okay? And then in those cases, making sure that the gusset, this bit, is big enough at the back to get you level. Which is why we use, our standard is 3-inch, and this is about a 2.5. Our standard would be 3, and we go up to 5-inch. Because if you've got the sort of horse you were talking about, which is high withered, possibly got a back